Dave and his wife Hallie, and I'm going to let them tell you their story. You kind of know what he does already. He's the radio voice of the Arizona Cardinals. That was when the Cardinals made it to the Super Bowl against the Steelers. He also, how many of you guys watched when Fresno State played Wisconsin a couple years ago? Ryan Colburn was the quarterback. How many people watched that game? You weren't listening on the radio? Well, Dave was the announcer of that game on ESPN. You'll also see him on the NBA, college football, college basketball. He does a terrific job. He's really one of the top people in the broadcasting industry.
Well, if you don't know the story of Chris and Stephanie Spielman, Chris just came out with a book. Zondervan, I believe, was the publisher. It's called That's Why I'm Here, and it's about their story. It's a lot about Chris's childhood and playing football. Some things in there about his brother Rick, who is the GM of the Minnesota Vikings, but was a player like Chris. But mostly about his wife Stephanie and her 12-year battle with breast cancer. But our first year working together was in 2009, and that was the year that Stephanie passed away, and it was kind of the time where things really got worse and you knew it was the end for Stephanie. And at about that time, Hallie was dealing with what we thought was a pinched nerve, and Chris, being an expert on injuring others and being injured himself, I asked Chris, based on some of the symptoms that Hallie was telling me. She said her arm was kind of going numb, and I said, that sound like a pinched nerve? And she said, yeah, it kind of sounds like a pinched nerve. And this was in late September, and I remember coming home, and Hallie was now not feeling well as well, and we thought, boy, that sounds like more than just a pinched nerve. So imagine you go in to urgent care thinking at worst, maybe there's some sort of pinched nerve, and you come out of there them telling you have bleeding in your brain. They had no idea what to do. And as you can see, she's doing great, but there was a month there where we just weren't sure whether Hallie was going to live, whether she was going to die. And here's someone that I'm with every week that has been dealing with this for 12 years, not knowing if his wife is going to live or die, and a strong Christian man as well. So our friendship grew, and he was always the first one to call to check on Hallie, even though his wife was dying. God had several purposes there, and one of them was just to get a sliver of what Chris had been dealing with for 12 years. And at that time, the other person in our broadcast booth was Bob Greasy, who had lost a wife to breast cancer. So here's three guys, one that had lost a wife, another that was losing a wife, and then the third who wasn't sure what was going to happen. And it was a time certainly that God had ordained, and opportunities to grow spiritually and lay everything at Christ's feet, and also have other men that, Chris in particular, that shared the same faith that you could lean on and draw strength from.
Well, I think the moment I knew something was bad, because when I went to the hospital, when Dave came home, I had to wait till he came home, because I knew it wasn't a pinched nerve after I went to the chiropractor, and then I really started to go downhill. I grabbed some pink Bible verses that I have. They're in this hot pink's my color. And I took him into the hospital with me, and I grabbed my pink little throw, and I knew I wasn't going to just go in for the day. And we went to the hospital, and so they did some tests, and I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't expect them to come back with, here's a picture of your brain, and see that white spot? That's bleeding. I'm like, that's a big spot, and that's a small brain. Am I going to die? And she said, I don't know. And I said, well, like tonight? She's like, I don't know. Like, I just meant like in the future. She's like, well, I just don't know, pretty much. And at that point, Dave came over, and we just prayed, and I just remember looking at him, and I didn't have assurance that I wasn't going to die, but I had this amazing peace. The kind I've read about in the Bible. Just this supernatural peace. And I said, do you feel it too? Because I didn't want me to just have it. I thought that wouldn't be fair. And he said, yes. And we both had this peace through this whole process. And I thought, okay, we can handle this. And it never was that I never got like you're going to live. There was never this, because God and I had a lot of talks, a lot of prayer time. But I never got this, you're going to live from God. Never. Because you think about your kids a lot. In fact, you think, everything gets cut out. It's amazing how quickly your life shrinks into focus. And I had a lot of focus. But things rolled on. Eventually, I went to a different doctor, and this doctor said, hey, I know what this is. He was the old guy who was really smart. And his name was Dr. Spetzler. And he was a surgeon. He said, it's this thing in your head, I got to take it out. And the funny part was, it was called a cavernous malformation. And I said, what is that? And the nickname is a raspberry. And I said, oh God, you're so funny, because pink's my favorite color. So I grew pink brain tumors. So I've had it since I was a baby. And it just gets big, and it pops out when you're in your 30s and 40s, and not very many people have them, only special people like me. And it affected my left hand, which is why, I had my left arm. I got up, and one day it was like this. I couldn't pick it up. So I came out of surgery like this. So I was laughing the Bible, and Jesus said, and he healed the hand. And it went, I'm like, that's what I had. So after surgery, I had 3 months worth of, all that kind of fun stuff. What do you call it? Physical therapy, thank you. No, it's got the other one, occupational therapy. Mm-hmm. Some of you know what I'm talking about, yeah. So I still can't feel a lot of stuff like this. I have really funny stories, like when I first tried, I couldn't, tie shoes, or my first button took me 45 minutes, and that was about after 3 months. I tried to button it was my daughter. I'm like, no, you're going to stay in here would you please stand here? Like, yeah. I can just tell you, I tell my kids, and it's truly a blessing, it was the greatest gift. It was the greatest gift. And I would ask to have that brain tumor over and over and over. Not repetitively, not in sequence. No, I don't want it again and again. But if I had to do life, it's a blessing, and I'm thankful for it. Really am.
Praise God.
How did you get through that time? And do you feel the same as Hallie, that what you learned through that process has changed your life moving forward?
I think the biggest thing was it just really, we can all talk about our faith. We can talk about it publicly, we can say the right things, we can sometimes say things we're not sure we even believe, but in the end, there are all periods in our life where the rubber meets the road. And really, do you believe what you say you believe? And, certainly that was a time where I was on my knees, and it, not that I wasn't before, but I was really on my knees. And it wasn't always, asking, certainly there were times asking for Hallie to be healed, but it was really asking for God's will, and that He would use whatever happened to bring us closer to Him, to be able to understand Him more and make Him known better. And certainly it was a strengthening period, and it had happened so fast. And it was over so fast. It really was about a month.
Well, now it's over fast. I can't.
Sure, but just in terms of all of a sudden, she was in the hospital for 48 hours. She goes home, and the rehabilitation starts. But we weren't sure for a while there whether she's going to live, die, and now she's back, and she's Hallie again. And there's no, other than the hand, at least to me, no real noticeable side effects. And Hallie probably does a pretty good job of not always sharing what she's going through, knowing that I'm going to stress out more about it than she is. But the biggest lesson that I learned from it was that we need to be in that intimate relationship with Christ, whether things are going well or things are not, because we're all going to face challenges. We're all going to have seasons in our spiritual life where we're up, we're down. We believe more, we believe less. We trust more, we trust less. But if we're in the Word, if we're in prayer, if we're getting accountability from other believers, if we're living out, or Christ living out His life through us at all times, we're going to grow, and we're going to understand more about who He is and who we are. And I think that was the greatest lesson, was just the intimacy with Him, and also really appreciate Him. And I've always appreciated my wife, but you really appreciate somebody more when you're not sure you're going to have them around with you.